My husband stole the money I got from my father's insurance payout and gave it to his mother so she could buy a house. His entire family thought I was weak enough to swallow it. I was still in my 20s when I lost my father, and it broke me in ways I didn't know were possible. He was the one person I always felt safe with, the one who believed in me no matter what. After he passed, I felt like the ground disappeared under my feet. The insurance payout I received wasn't just money to me. It was my father's last gift, something I could use to build the future he always wanted me to have. I told myself I would save it for a home, a place where I could finally feel settled and secure again. But my husband Clint had other ideas. He was 31, and people always described him as charming. And yes, he could be, at least in front of others. But behind closed doors, there was another side to him. He knew how to twist my words, how to make me doubt myself, how to push me until I questioned whether I was being unreasonable. And then there was his mother, Marjorie. From the very beginning, she made it clear that she believed Clint belonged to her, and I was just someone tagging along. She was controlling, sharp-tongued, and entitled in every sense of the word. She spoke like the world owed her something, and she always expected Clint to deliver it. When my father died, Clint didn't comfort me the way I hoped he would. He didn't cry with me or even sit in silence with me. Instead, he started bringing up the payout. We should think of family first, he told me more than once. That money could help all of us. Every time he said it, my stomach turned. That money wasn't for all of us. It was meant for me, for the future I had lost when my dad was taken away. I told Clint over and over that I wanted to use it for a home. Nothing huge, just a place that belonged to me, with walls I could paint and a garden I could grow. A place where I could finally breathe again. He nodded like he understood, but the very next day, he started again. Family first, he repeated like it was some law I was breaking. And each time he said it, I felt the pressure closing in. Marjorie would drop her little comments, reminding Clint that a good son never turned his back on his mother. I could feel both of them circling me, pushing me toward a choice I didn't want to make. And somewhere deep inside, I knew Clint had already made up his mind. The look in his eyes told me that the decision wasn't mine anymore. I woke up one morning, and the first thing I noticed was how quiet the house felt. Clint wasn't in bed, and when I walked into the kitchen, he was already dressed, sipping his coffee like he had been up for hours. His face carried this calm, almost smug look that immediately made me uneasy. I handled the finances, he said casually, like he was telling me he had picked up groceries. I frowned, not sure what he meant. My chest tightened as I asked, "What do you mean you handled them?" Clint put his mug down and looked at me as if I was slow to catch on. "The money from your dad's payout. I took care of it. Mom needed help, and now she's got a house. For all of us, Hannah. This is for our future too." I felt my body go cold. I stared at him, waiting for him to laugh, to say it was a joke. But he didn't. His expression stayed calm, even proud. The truth sank in like a weight. The money my father left me, the money I had guarded so carefully, was gone. My hands shook as I said, "You had no right. That wasn't your money." Clint sighed like I was being unreasonable. "It's our money, Hannah. We're married. What's mine is yours, what's yours is mine. And Mom is family. You don't get it now, but one day you'll see this was the right thing." Later that day, I went with him to see Marjorie's new house. She stood at the front door like a queen welcoming her subjects, her smile wide, her arms outstretched. "Clint, my sweet boy," she said loudly, hugging him tight. Then she turned her eyes on me, sharp and dismissive. "This is what loyalty looks like. You should be proud of him." I wanted to scream, to tell her that money was meant for my future, not hers. But before I could get a word out, she cut me off with a laugh. "You're young. You don't understand how families work. Someday you'll learn it's not about selfish dreams, it's about sacrifice." Her words burned. Selfish. That's what she thought of me for wanting to use the money my father left me for the life I had planned. She looked at me like I was a spoiled child who needed to be corrected. Clint slipped his arm around my shoulders, as if that would calm me down. "See, it's still our future," he whispered, leaning close. "Mom will always take care of us. You're upset now, but trust me, this was the best choice." I pulled away from him, my stomach twisting. It wasn't his choice to make. It wasn't his money to give. He had stolen something that was never his, and worse, he acted like he had done me a favor. That night, lying in bed beside him, I stared at the ceiling, feeling cornered and betrayed. He slept soundly, satisfied with himself, while I lay there realizing the life I thought we were building together was never really mine at all. Marjorie moved into her new house, as if she had been waiting her whole life for it. She didn't move in alone. Clint's brother, Dean, and his sister, Rochelle, came with her. Neither of them worked steady jobs, and both had a habit of expecting things to be handed to them. They spoke loudly about how this house was theirs too, as if Clint and I had been planning it for them all along. When I visited, I was treated like a guest in a place that had been built out of what was taken from me. Marjorie walked me through the rooms with pride, pointing out the big kitchen, the wide backyard, and the new furniture she had picked out. She kept saying things like, "You should be grateful, Hannah. Now you'll always have somewhere to stay." Her voice carried the tone of someone giving a gift, not someone who had stolen one. Dean slouched on the couch most days, watching television and leaving dishes everywhere. Rochelle treated the house like a stage, bragging about what she would do with each room, though she never lifted a finger to help. Both of them looked at me with the same smug expression their mother wore, as if I was the outsider, the one who should be thankful that they allowed me in. Meanwhile, Clint was gone more and more. At first he told me he was helping with renovations, but after a while I realized he just preferred being there. He ate dinner with them, fixed little things around the house, and came home late, if at all. I spent most nights alone, sitting at our table with cold food and unanswered questions. One evening, as I sat in the quiet, it hit me fully. That money wasn't for all of us like Clint had claimed. It was never about building a future together. It was a gift handed straight to Marjorie, no strings attached. She had her house, her throne, and her children living under her roof again. And I was left with nothing. The more time they spent together, the clearer it became that I was the target of their private jokes. Rochelle laughed one afternoon when I walked into the room. She whispered something to Dean, who smirked and shook his head. Later, I overheard them speaking when they didn't realize I was nearby. "She didn't even bring anything into this marriage," Rochelle said. "At least Clint takes care of us. She should be grateful we even acknowledge her." Dean added, "Yeah, she's just riding on Clint anyway. Without him, she's got nothing." The words burned in my chest. They had taken my father's gift and twisted the story until I was painted as the one who contributed nothing. Even Clint joined in at times, brushing off my feelings as if I were being too sensitive. I sat there night after night, realizing I was alone in my own marriage. The people who had benefited from my loss treated me like I should thank them, and the man I had trusted chose to stand with them, not with me. Whenever I tried to bring up the money Clint had given away, his whole body would stiffen. His voice turned sharp, his face cold, and he acted like I had insulted him. "Why can't you just let it go?" he snapped one evening. "You're so ungrateful. My mom gave us everything, and you can't even respect that." I told him it wasn't about his mother, it was about trust. He rolled his eyes and accused me of being cold-hearted. "You don't understand family values. You only think about yourself. My mom has been there for me since day one. You wouldn't even lift a finger for her." The words cut deep. I sat there stunned, wondering how he could twist it like that, when I was the one who had lost something. He made me feel like I was the selfish one for even questioning him. Soon after, I started noticing little things in our bank account. A couple hundred missing here, 50 there. At first I thought maybe I had miscalculated bills or forgotten about a payment. But it kept happening. Every time I asked Clint, he brushed me off. "Don't worry about it. I've got it under control," he said, but he wouldn't look me in the eye. One night, after he fell asleep, I checked the account myself. My stomach sank as I saw where the money was going. Transfers, purchases, little payments, all linked to things for Marjorie's house. Hardware store receipts, furniture, delivery services. He wasn't just giving her the payout anymore. He was still feeding her with whatever scraps he could pull from our lives. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. "What's the big deal?" he said, his tone mocking. "It's not like we're struggling, and it's for the house we'll all share one day. You act like I'm throwing money away." But it was being thrown away. It was being poured into a house that wasn't mine, wasn't ours, and certainly wasn't for me. I confided in a couple of friends, people I trusted to give me honest advice. When I told them what was happening, their faces grew serious. One of them leaned forward and said quietly, "Hannah, this isn't normal. He's controlling your money. That's financial abuse." The word made me feel sick. Abuse. I wanted to deny it, but deep down I knew it was true. Clint wasn't just careless with money. He was using it to keep me powerless, to make me feel like I had no say. I went home that night with their words echoing in my head. Clint was asleep when I slipped into bed, his breathing steady, his body relaxed. Meanwhile, I lay there wide awake, staring at the ceiling, realizing the cracks in my marriage weren't small anymore. They were spreading, deep and dangerous, and I didn't know how much longer the whole thing could hold together. Marjorie decided to host a big dinner at her new house. She invited the whole family, along with a few neighbors to show off. The table was crowded with food, and she floated around the room like a queen in her castle. Every chance she got, she reminded people that this was her dream home. As plates were passed around, she raised her glass and gave a little speech. "This house means everything to me," she said loudly, her voice full of pride. "And it's all thanks to my son." Clint showed what real loyalty looks like. He's not just a good son, he's a real man. The guests clapped, smiling at Clint as though he had done something heroic. My chest tightened. I wanted to shout the truth, that the house had been bought with money that was never his to give. Instead, I sat quietly, my cheeks burning as everyone praised him. Marjorie looked straight at me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Some people lose fathers," she said smoothly, "but others gain families. You should be grateful, Hannah. You're lucky to have us." Her words cut through me like a blade. The table laughed politely, as if it was just a clever remark. I stared down at my plate, wishing I could disappear. My father had only been gone a short time, and she dared to turn my grief into a joke. I glanced at Clint, hoping for some kind of support, but he only chuckled along with everyone else. He didn't correct her, didn't defend me, didn't even look ashamed. His laughter felt like another betrayal, heavier than all the rest. I stayed quiet for the rest of the evening, my food untouched. Every laugh, every compliment Marjorie received for her new house made me feel smaller. I couldn't stand the way she carried herself, like I was nothing more than a burden at her table. When the night finally ended, Clint drove us home. He hummed along to the radio as if nothing had happened. I stared out the window, fighting back the tears burning in my eyes. He didn't ask what was wrong, didn't acknowledge the cruel words that had been said. The moment we stepped inside our house, I couldn't hold it anymore. I went straight to the bedroom, shut the door, and sank to the floor. The sobs came hard and fast. All the hurt I had been carrying broke loose. The man I had trusted with my life had stolen from me, sided with his mother, and now laughed while she mocked my loss. That night I realized something I had been trying not to admit. Whatever marriage I thought I had, whatever bond one believed in, it was gone. Clint had chosen his mother's pride over my pain, and for the first time, I felt the full weight of just how alone I really was. I reached a point where I knew I couldn't sit back and let things keep happening. Every time Clint dismissed me, every time Marjorie looked down at me, the anger inside me grew stronger. If they thought I was weak, they were wrong. I started planning carefully, quietly, without saying a word. The first thing I did was gather proof. Late at night, while Clint slept, I sat at the computer and pulled bank statements. I saved copies of every transfer he had made, every little payment that had gone to his mother's house. I went through old messages too, screenshots of him admitting he had handled the money and telling me to stop questioning him. My hands shook as I worked, but I kept going. I told myself I needed a record of everything, something no one could twist against me later. Once I had enough collected, I contacted a lawyer. I didn't tell Clint where I was going. I just said I had errands and drove to the office with my heart pounding. Sitting across from the lawyer, I laid out the papers and told the story. She listened carefully, nodding, and then she explained something I hadn't fully understood before. The payout from my father wasn't considered marital property. It belonged to me alone. Clint had taken something that was never his, and I had every right to fight for it. Her words felt like a lifeline. For months I had been made to believe I was selfish, ungrateful, even cold-hearted. But here was someone telling me I was in the right. Not only could I divorce Clint, I could demand repayment of what he had stolen. For the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. I left that office with a folder of advice and a clear mind. I couldn't let Clint see that anything had changed, so I played along at home, nodding at his excuses and pretending not to notice his late nights at Marjorie's. Inside, though, I was taking steps he didn't know about. I opened a new bank account in my own name and started moving small amounts of money there whenever I could. I didn't want him to notice, so I kept it subtle. I also began packing little things, slipping clothes and personal items into bags I stored in the trunk of my car. Each piece I moved felt like one more step toward freedom. Every night I made lists, what to take, who to call, how to time my exit. It felt dangerous, sneaking around under the nose of the man who once promised to protect me. But it also felt powerful. For the first time since he betrayed me, I wasn't just reacting. I was in control. I looked at Clint differently then. When he boasted about helping his mother, I stayed quiet, thinking about the folder of evidence waiting for the day I would use it. When he told me I didn't understand family, I smiled to myself, because I knew soon enough he would understand what it felt like to lose everything. I waited until I had everything in order before I made my move. One evening, I set the folder of papers on the kitchen table and told Clint to sit down. He looked at me like it was just another argument, like I was about to nag him again. But when I opened the folder and slid the pages toward him, his face changed. "These are the transfers," I said, keeping my voice steady. "Every dollar you sent to your mother. Every receipt, every message. I have it all." He flipped through the pages, then pushed them back toward me with a smirk. "So what? You think you're going to scare me with some bank statements? You're not going anywhere, Han. You don't have anyone but me. Without me, you're nothing." The words should have broken me, but they didn't. I looked straight at him and said, "I already hired a lawyer. She knows everything. You stole money that wasn't yours, and you're going to answer for it." For the first time, I saw the smile slip from his face. He leaned forward, trying to regain control. "Don't be dramatic. You wouldn't actually do that. Think about it, Hannah. Where would you even go? What would you even do without me? Before I could answer, Marjorie walked in. She must have overheard part of it, because she didn't even ask what was happening. She went straight into attack mode. I knew it, she spat, pointing a finger at me. You're nothing but a parasite. My son gave you a place in this family, and this is how you repay him? Threatening him with lawyers. Her voice was sharp, filled with the same arrogance she had always carried. She didn't see the stolen money as a crime. She saw me as the problem, the outsider who should stay quiet and accept whatever scraps they gave me. I stood up, calm in a way I hadn't felt for months. You can call me whatever you want, Marjorie, but I'm done letting you or him control me. This ends here. Clint stood too, sputtering, his words tumbling over each other. Wait, Hannah, don't do this. You'll regret it. We can work this out. Just sit down, stop acting crazy. But I didn't stop. I grabbed the folder, tucked it under my arm, and walked out the door. The sound of his voice followed me, desperate now, but I didn't turn back. For the first time in a long time, I felt steady. Every step I took away from that house felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. Behind me, Clint's words grew faint, lost in the night. I didn't need to listen anymore. I had already made my choice, and there was no going back. The divorce moved forward faster than Clint ever expected. He walked into the courtroom full of confidence, still thinking he could charm his way out of everything. He looked at me like I was bluffing, like I would back down at the last second. But once the lawyers began laying out the facts, his face started to change. The judge made it clear right away that the insurance payout had been mine alone. It wasn't marital property. It had been left to me by my father, and Clint had no legal right to touch it. Hearing those words out loud was like a weight lifting from my chest. For months I had been told I was selfish, but now the truth stood firm in front of everyone. Clint tried to argue. He said we were married, that everything should be shared. His lawyer scrambled, throwing out excuses, but none of it mattered. The judge only looked at the paperwork, the records I had gathered, the transfers that showed my money leaving our account and ending up in Marjorie's hand. The decision was clear. Clint was responsible for paying it back. When the order came down, his jaw dropped. He was told he had to repay the full amount or face heavy financial penalties. It wasn't just about money anymore. His reputation, his credit, his future. It was all on the line. Marjorie, who had been sitting behind him, went pale. She whispered to him frantically, her hands clutching his arm, but there was nothing he could do. The house she had been showing off, the house she had bragged about at every turn, was suddenly in danger. Without the money, she couldn't keep up with the costs. The panic spread quickly through the family. Dean, who had been lounging at that house like it was his personal playground, snapped at Clint in the hallway after the hearing. You've ruined everything. You should have never touched that money if you couldn't handle it. Rochelle piled on, her voice sharp and bitter. You're an idiot. You dragged us into this mess, and now we're the ones who are going to lose. Clint stood there, caught between his siblings' anger and his mother's fear. For once, he had no smooth words, no clever explanations. The same people he had betrayed me for were now turning on him, blaming him for their crumbling security. I didn't say a word. I didn't need to. I sat quietly with my lawyer, listening to the chaos unfold just a few feet away. Watching them unravel was like standing outside a storm, safe and dry, while they tore each other apart. Clint kept glancing at me, maybe hoping I would step in, that I would still feel sorry for him. But I didn't. I just met his eyes once, calm and steady, and then looked away. This was his mess, his choice, and his downfall. It didn't take long for everything to start collapsing. The house Marjorie had been so proud of quickly became a burden. The bank notices piled up, and when Clint couldn't keep up with the repayments he owed, foreclosure papers arrived. The dream house she had bragged about at every dinner was slipping through her fingers. Marjorie tried to fight it at first, but she didn't have the money. She begged Clint to fix it, but he was already drowning in debt and legal fees. Her voice, once full of confidence, turned bitter and desperate. Soon after, the locks were changed, and the family had no choice but to leave. Dean and Rochelle were furious. Dean packed his things carelessly, throwing blame in every direction. This is your fault, he shouted at Rochelle. You never worked, you just sat around spending money. She fired back, just as loud, accusing him of being lazy and never contributing a cent. Their anger bounced off the walls, louder than any television they had once spent their days watching. The siblings who once mocked me were now at war with each other. They weren't united anymore. Every conversation turned into a fight about who had ruined their chance at a better life. The bond they claimed was stronger than anything had crumbled under the weight of their grief. Clint reached out to me more than once during this time. His tone was no longer smug or confident. Instead, it was pleading. He called late at night, his voice soft, saying things like, I'll change, Hannah. I see what I did now. Please, just give me one more chance. But I didn't waver. I had already freed myself from him, and I wasn't going back. Each time he begged, I told him the same thing. It's too late. I'm done. There was no anger in my voice, only finality. He had chosen his path, and I had chosen mine. Meanwhile, Marjorie and her children bounced between temporary places, relying on whoever would take them. The arguments only grew worse. They fought over money, over food, over whose fault it was that they no longer had the home they once flaunted. What had once been pride and arrogance turned into bitterness and blame. I watched from a distance, not involved, not saying a word. Their downfall unfolded without me lifting a finger. The family that had laughed at my pain was now drowning in their own. The loyalty they had preached about was nowhere to be found. They tore each other apart, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but anger. For me, it was over. I didn't need revenge anymore. Life had already taken care of that for me. The day the divorce was finalized felt like stepping into fresh air after being trapped for years. I signed the last of the papers with steady hands, knowing there was no turning back. The judge confirmed what I had waited to hear. I would recover what was stolen from me. My payout, the money my father left me, was safe again. More than the money, though, I had my freedom. Walking out of that courthouse, I didn't look for Clint. I didn't care what expression he wore, or what excuse he might have been preparing. He no longer had power over me. The ties were cut clean, and I wasn't going to let guilt or old memories pull me back. In the quiet moments afterward, I thought about how close I had come to losing myself. The betrayal had been so deep it nearly broke me. For a while, I had believed their words, that I was selfish, that I didn't understand family, that I was weak. But I wasn't. I had stood up, gathered proof, and fought back. Instead of destroying me, their betrayal had carved out a stronger version of me. I didn't need to shout or prove anything anymore. My revenge was silent, but it was powerful. I carried the image of Clint and Marjorie, sitting in that empty house, watching everything slip through their fingers. The same place they had once paraded as a victory was now gone, and with it their pride. That was enough for me. When the moving truck pulled away from my new apartment, I stood on the sidewalk for a long time. The building wasn't fancy, but it was mine. No one could take it from me. No one could sign it away behind my back. I carried the last box inside and set it down, then opened the windows wide. The air felt different, lighter, cleaner, free. I walked through the room slowly, touching the walls, imagining the life I would build here. A life on my own terms. No Marjorie, no siblings leeching off me, no husband draining my spirit. Just me, my choices, and my peace. For the first time in a long time, I smiled without forcing it. The relief was real. The fear and humiliation were gone. What was left was determination. Never again would I let anyone control me. Never again would I ignore the warning sign. I closed the door behind me, locking it with a steady hand. Outside, the world was still noisy, still messy, but inside my little apartment, there was calm. I was free, and I wasn't afraid anymore. Do you think Hannah made the right choice by walking away from Clint and his family, or should she have given them another chance? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe and stay tuned for more.